Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Trumbore with your nightly review for Thursday, March 21st. It is 4:01 p.m. Eastern Time. Dow Jones finished down 90 points to 14,421, minus 0.6%. S&P 500 lost 13 to 1545, 0.8%. And NASDAQ lost 31 or 1% to 3222. Shares in FedEx lost another $2.50, so they're down about $10 last 2 days. Oracle, which announced awful earnings after the close yesterday, was down about 10% today, $3.50, as the company said there was a lack of urgency in the sales force. Talk about throwing your key employees under the bus. Tokyo's Nikkei was up 1.3% to 12,635. I keep repeating, it was the Japanese economics minister who said in February that the Nikkei would rise to 13,000 by April 1st. And he's going to be right there. London's FTSE down 0.7%. UK February retail sales, however, were up 2.1% month over month. That's good. Paris down 1.4%. Frankfurt down 0.9%. A flash purchasing managers index reading for the Eurozone, a composite reading for both services and manufacturing, came in at 46.5, which is awful, and that's worse than February's 47.9. Germany's manufacturing number was 48.9 in March, again, flash number. That's versus 50.8 in February for Germany, or a 3-month low. France's composite reading, both services and manufacturing, was 42.1 versus 43.1 in February. On manufacturing specifically in France, it was 43.9, unchanged, but just awful. In China, the Shanghai composite rose 0.3%. They had better news on the manufacturing front there. An HSBC flash report for March came in at 51.7 versus 50.4 in February. In the U.S., existing home sales for February came in at the best pace, annualized pace since November of 2009. And a flash PMI manufacturing number by Markit, M-A-R-K-I-T, that does all of the European numbers as well, came in at 54.9 for March in the U.S. And that's up from 54.3 in February. So let's review what's transpired the last 24 hours in Washington. In Congress, first, the Senate voted to fund the government through September 30th. 73 to 26, 51 Democrats, 20 Republicans, 2 independents. The $85 billion in sequester cuts is locked in. White House tours remain closed. Federal meat inspectors were spared furloughs. Tuition assistance to service members was reinstated. But 100 small and medium air traffic facilities left exposed to possible closure. The House then passed the bill 318 to 109, and President Obama will sign it. Cabinet agencies were granted new flexibility in implementing the $85 billion in cuts. So the continuing resolution, the March 27 deadline, was drama-free. What do you know? Well, now it's about the fiscal 2014 budget for the year beginning October 1 and beyond, and already the House passed Paul Ryan's budget, 221 to 207, without a single Democrat. 10 Republicans voted no. Of course, the Ryan plan incorporates the New Year's tax hike, the fiscal cliff, overhauls Medicaid, Medicare, cuts $5 trillion in spending over a decade. But remember, it's just cutting the rate of growth. But this is going to be the story into the summer. All of it tied to the next chapter in the debt ceiling debate. The Senate will shortly come up with a budget of their own, and it'll be diametrically opposed to what the House has. And the President is eventually going to produce a budget in mid-April, he said. He was, by tradition, normally the President submits one in mid-February. I'm going to have very brief comments on Cyprus. It's rapidly evolving. Panikos Dimitriadis, governor of the Central Bank of Cyprus, said this afternoon the banking system needs restructuring, otherwise it will go bankrupt, and it needs to be done immediately. Deposits up to 100,000 euro under a new plan that is being discussed in the Cypriot Parliament right now. Deposits up to 100,000 euro would be guaranteed, and bank jobs would be safeguarded, according to the central bank chief. He said the bill would be submitted to Parliament to restructure the sector. The law is expected to wind up Laiki, the island's second biggest lender, splitting it into a good and bad bank. The ECB, European Central Bank, told Cyprus to agree on a plan to raise the 5.8 billion euro to ensure its bailout by Monday, or see emergency lending to its two biggest banks cut off. The ECB is preparing for possible capital controls and other measures to ring-fence Cyprus' financial sector once banks reopen on Tuesday, if they do. This included extending as much liquidity as needed to any solvent banks in the Eurozone, including the smaller Cypriot ones. Speaking in Brussels, Joran Dijsselbloem, who is the chair of the Committee of 17 Eurozone finance ministers, the ones who negotiated the weekend bailout that taxed small accounts, said Cyprus represented a systemic threat to the Eurozone, further underscoring the danger of an escalation. In Israel, today, President Obama delivered his appeal for Israel to recognize that compromise will be necessary to achieve lasting security. Speaking before Israeli university students, he reminded them that the United States is their country's best friend and most important ally. Obama said, "As long as there is a United States of America, you are not alone." He added, given the frustration in the international community, Israel must reverse an undertow of isolation. Whereas once Israel could feel at ease by keeping good relations with Arab autocrats, the revolutions sweeping the Middle East and North Africa have made broader outreach, especially on the Palestinian issue, an imperative. Just as Israelis built a state in their homeland, Palestinians have a right to be a free people in their own land. Obama added, the Palestinian people's right to self-determination and their justice must also be recognized. Put yourself in their shoes, look at the world through their eyes. It is not fair that a Palestinian child cannot grow up in a state of her own, living their entire lives with the presence of a foreign army that controls the movements every single day. Israelis must recognize that continued settlement activity is counterproductive to the cause of peace, and that an independent Palestine must be viable with real borders that have to be drawn. Obama continued, no single step is going to erase years of history and propaganda, but progress with the Palestinians is a powerful way to begin, while sidelining extremists who thrive on conflict and thrive on division. Earlier in the day, Obama was in the West Bank with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. He told Abbas, if the expectation is that we can only have direct negotiations when everything is settled ahead of time, then there is no point for negotiations. So I think it is important to work through this process even if there are irritants on both sides. But Abbas and other Palestinian officials said they would not drop the demand that the settlements are frozen before the Palestinians agree to more negotiations. Abbas, in a news conference, said, we require the Israeli government to stop settlements in order to discuss all our issues and their concerns. So, got nowhere there. All right. Staying with the Obama speech at this audience of university students, the Los Angeles Times, Edmund Sanders and Bathsheba Sobelman had a very interesting article today. Obama's political magnetism may prove less effective with the broader masses of Israeli youth. Reared on suicide bombings, failed peace initiatives, and segregation from Palestinians, Israel's younger generation is generally more conservative, more religious, less tolerant, and less supportive of a two-state plan than their parents or grandparents. Overall, most Israelis still favor a two-state solution, but support is weakest among the young. A survey by the organization B'nai B'rith found only 40% of those ages 18 to 24 favored a Palestinian state, compared with 67% of those ages 55 to 64. Recent studies have shown that about half of Jewish Israeli high school students don't believe Arabs should have equal rights, such as serving in the parliament. A survey of Israelis ages 15 to 18 found 60% preferred strong leaders to the rule of law, and 70% said security concerns trump democratic values. In national elections in January, right-wing parties such as Likud won 40% of the vote of those ages 18 to 24, compared with about 10% who voted for left-leaning parties. And of Israel's citizens age 15 to 24, 15% are identified as ultra-Orthodox, compared with about 10% of the overall population. But get this, nearly 1/3 of Jewish first graders are ultra-Orthodox today. Moving over to South Korea, I talked about the hack attack yesterday. Officials in Seoul traced it to a server in China, but that's a country that has been used by North Korean hackers in the past. It reinforces the vulnerability of South Korea. One government official in Seoul, in blaming Pyongyang, said it would take months to firmly establish responsibility. But Young Si-yul, a former North Korean soldier who went to a military college in Pyongyang to groom hackers and who defected to the South in 2008, estimates that North Korea has some 3,000 troops, including 600 professional hackers in the cyber unit. Jan's alma mater, the Miram University, is now called the University of Automation. The North's professional cyber warriors enjoy perks such as luxury apartments. I don't think they will stop at a temporary malfunction, said Yang, referring yesterday to shutting down the 3 television networks and 2 or 3 banks. North Korea can easily bring down another country in a cyber warfare attack. Lee Dong-hoon, an information security expert at Korea University in Seoul, said North Korea can't invest in fighter jets or warships, but they have put all their resources into raising hackers. Qualified talent matters to cyber warfare, not technology. So it's all about nukes and ballistic missiles and hackers. Well, that's all for tonight. I'll be back with you on Monday. Read the week in review at stocksnews.com. I post it by Saturday morning. I'm going to leave you with Bobby Smith, who died the other day at age 76, lead vocalist of the Spinners, including on this tune. Take care.